Okay, I'm going to open this up with a question for anybody that understands grammar better than I do. Is it who is Mosa or whom is Mosa? Which one is the more correct title here? And please, correct me like you're correcting my homework in elementary school for that, if you could. All right. Hello, everybody. Teching 101 and Barry here, alongside Law. Oh, no. Law's hat. Wait a minute. Law has a Denden Mushi that also has Law's hat. Law might still have a miniature version of his hat that he might have to wear in the meantime until he gets his normal hat back. Yeah, there's a theory for you. All right, no. So we have Denden Mushi here. We're going to be talking about the secret identity of Mosa. Yeah, who exactly is Mosa? No, that's Moda, not Mosa. Although, I guess it's not completely impossible that Moda could be Mosa. Not very likely, but I guess the names are similar enough. Now, so we've had two conversations with this Mosa individual so far. They occur over Denden Mushi, and this person only contacts Loki, who is chained at the bottom of the Yggdrasil tree, all right? The first of said conversations was in chapter 1134, and the second conversation, maybe the last conversation, at least over Denden Mushi, occurred in the last chapter, 1151. Because when they contacted Loki, they said, hey, thanks for everything. I really enjoyed talking to you, but some stuff's going on where I'm at right now, so I'm probably not going to be able to talk to you again. Bye, click, and then just dial tone after that, okay? So, yeah, we know very, very little about this individual. We know their general speech pattern and the way that they communicate to Loki. Their personality seems to be rather meek compared to Loki's. Now, granted, everybody's personality traits are pretty meek compared to Loki, because he's the kind of guy that's like, I'm going to destroy the world, and I'm going to bring the tree toppling down. All of everybody's going to run in terror when I get out of here. Compared to that, everybody's like, okay, Loki, well, that's great. Anyway, So the way Mosa communicates with Loki is yeah, my life was pretty rough. And then Loki's like, I would have slaughtered them all. And Mosa's like, that's a lot, Loki. That's a lot. It's okay. So that's the general personality vibe I'm getting. We don't have anything that indicates their gender. Or exactly their status. There was one translation way back in 1134 that Loki called Mosa a noble, a noble soul or something like that. Not meant in the context of you are nobility, which is not impossible that they could be nobility. We just don't know. I think it was more, the official translation here is just, that's why you're so weak. That's why, you are somebody that's being taken advantage of or being walked on all over or something like that. Loki has the personality type that's sort of hey, people are beating you down and telling you what to do. You're weak. You need to stand up for yourself, which, is advice. It's in that very harsh way, but it is advice, right? And Mosa honestly mentioned, even in the last chapter, mentioned, hey, when we first started talking, you and me, Loki, you were really scary, and I was kind of afraid of talking to you, but in a strange way, as the conversations continued, I kind of learned that, I've gotten a lot of confidence from you, and I really appreciate that, and you're actually kind of a kind person. And Loki even said in the first call, hey, who are you calling kind? I'm the toughest bastard this side of the salty spittoon, okay. Because that's the image that, Loki is cutting. He's sort of like a professional wrestler. Ironically, in Elbaf, where a lot of giants are named after professional wrestlers. I wonder if that's a indication Oda is making here. Okay, so let's talk about the name Mosa. All right. So, in Japanese, the name Mosa might be taken from the term Mosa. No, that's a mimosa. No, that's another mimosa. Mosa. There we go. It's a Japanese term for being hairy or thickly bearded. Hold on, we're going to get back to that because there's a very popular theory that many comments in the review were throwing out there. Okay, we'll get back to that in a moment. The Viz translation takes Mosa to just mean shaggy. All right, so like shaggy hair sort of thing. So are you ready for the big reveal on who Mosa is? It's Chewie! It's obviously Chewbacca, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Wookiees are now in the One Piece world. You know what? It's fine. It's whatever. Aliens exist in the One Piece world. Why can't Chewie exist in the One Piece world? Chewie is very submissive at this point. He's like, I don't know about this, Loki. It's just like, whatever. After what happened with Han, you're listening to me now. It's like, okay, I guess. It's like, whatever. Loki and Chewie team up. No. So that's immediately what I thought of. Like somebody with very shaggy hair, okay? Or maybe Shaggy Rogers from Scooby-Doo. One or the other. Either way, hey, Chewie or Shaggy, I'm okay with either of those characters palling around with Loki. That's going to be fun. So, also, they use the term co when referring to Loki, when referring to Loki as like a sign of more like friendly respect. They are friends. I mean, you can get that indication, even though Loki might in fact be a little harsh with Mosa. They've clearly had multiple conversations. We've only seen the two, but they've been talking for quite some time. And in fact, the way their first conversation began, they were like in the middle of the conversation when we cut over to it, but their first conversation literally started with, so you're in the underworld, and Loki is saying to Mosa, hey, you're almost as bored as I am. And Mosa's like, am I bothering you? Nah, I'm chained to a tree. I guess I could use some conversation. It passes the time, right? So some things that we know about Mosa. They experienced some kind of horrible, traumatizing event in their past. And they have told Loki about this event to get their thoughts on it. And they have also explained this event to Loki and have gone through everything with Loki. And just like, yeah, this really horrible thing that happened. Loki's response is, are you still traumatized by that incident, by that time? And Mosa says, yes, now even the memory of it makes me tremble uncontrollably. Okay? And Loki's like, yeah, I know how that feels, because Loki had to kill his own father, Jarul, who may or may not have been Domi Reversi. That seems to be the general vibe right now with that, considering, Jarul was always spoken about to be this really kind, caring king. You know what? I'm actually kind of a side note about that. I'm actually really happy if that's the twist, because I'm glad that it's either like magical powers making him evil that have now been shown with Emu and Dorian Bragi and everything, rather than Jarul like being evil the whole time, but he was pretending to be a kind, benevolent king. Because we've already done that trope enough times in One Piece, I feel. This would be like, no, Jarul was a genuinely good person, and then he was Domi Reversi, did the exact opposite of that, right? Okay. So Loki goes on about the whole thing like, oh, well, if I was there in your place, Mosa, if I would have experienced this traumatizing event like you did, I would have burned it all to the ground and killed all of them instead. And Mosa's like, hey, look, I don't want to do that. Mosa even says that, like, I tremble in fear, and I do feel hatred for the people that wronged me in the past from this event. But even so, I don't want them all to die. I don't want them all to be horribly murdered. Like, that's like the idea that Loki's going with, like 100%. Like, oh, that's what I would have done. And Mosa, way more meek, is like, no, that's okay, right? And so that's when Loki sort of like admonishes Mosa and is like, oh, you're weak. You can't take, that's the reason why you're never going to get out of this funk that you're in, as it were, right? And he even brings up here in their first conversation, you gotta make sure, like, all the people that wronged you, you gotta put them down in the ground for good, otherwise they'll come back up for vengeance. Loki would know this, full on, I guess. I mean, he did kill his father, and then I guess there was a big war at the castle, and then he left and he went out to sea, and then he eventually was captured by Shanks. So, like, eventually he was brought back and chained to a giant tree, right? Which, does suck for Loki. He's just like, man, that sucks. Man, if I would have just wiped out all of the giants back then, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have gotten chained to a tree. Then again, it was Shanks that was the one that did that, not the giants. So, yeah. And so that conversation kind of ends with, Mosa saying, you know what, you're actually not such a bad guy. You just have to kind of read through, like, the angry yelling and shouting that you do. And then he gets really upset and is just like, don't call me kind. And then he's like, okay, fine, just don't shout, right? And that was the end of that conversation, right? Okay, and then this most recent conversation we just had, the conversation is very quick. It's basically, hey, Loki, I'm in the middle of something right now. Loki's like, yeah, I'm in the middle of something too. He's like, okay, great. Well, the conversation won't last long. I just wanted to thank you. There's something happening where I'm at. I don't think I'll be able to call you again. Bye. And then Loki's like, wait a minute. What? Is it about that? Or did that danger happen again where you were at? Wait, what are you doing? Click. And then it goes away. Okay. So those are the conversations, essentially. Now, the secret identity. There is one popular theory that has emerged. Jarl. I mean, Mosa, thickly bearded. I mean, Jarl's epithet is quite literally mountain beard, right? Okay, so I understand where this is coming from. A lot of the people that have said it's Jarl are saying it's because the Den Mushi is clearly modeled after Jarl. So let's talk about this Den Mushi for a little bit, all right? This Den Mushi that Loki is using to communicate with Mosa is unlike any Den Mushi we have ever seen in the story up until now. It is a brand new model variation of Den Mushi, okay? I gotta be honest with you. When this thing first appeared, my instant thought was, Oda just kind of pulled this one out of his ass, all right? I think what Oda was going for was like, okay, Loki is chained to a tree and he's going to have a conversation with this person named Mosa. I think Oda planned ahead for that. But he was like, oh, wait a minute. How is he going to communicate with Mosa? They're in the underworld. They're in this massive blizzard. Den Mushis don't work in the cold. That's something very important to mention. That was a major plot point in Impel Down, that the Den Mushis would not work in the lower level in freezing hell because it was too cold. So he's like, oh, okay, there's a snow-resistant, cold-resistant variant. The woolly version of a Den Mushi. It's like, oh, okay, I guess. But then he came into another problem, which is like, wait a minute. Loki is chained to a fucking tree. He won't be able to turn the Den Mushi on. How does that work? Well, it's not just a cold-resistant Den Mushi. It's also a voice-activated model. And it's like, okay, all right, Oda. Like, listen, this does sound like you're playing D&D, and it's like, okay, you have this thing. Well, what about the problem I can't use? Oh, yeah, it works differently than every other magic item. It works this way now, right? That's kind of the vibe I got with that thing, all right? Like Oda planned on the meeting with Mosa and everything, but just like, oh, wait a minute. I need to invent a brand new Den Mushi that has brand new features that were never shown before in the story in order for this to make sense. And it's like, okay. So the woolly Den Mushi is cold resistant, so it has very long, thick, shaggy hair. Now, is that indicative of the just naturally how the Den Mushi looks, or is that indicative of the Den Mushi's ability to mimic appearance? You know, like this one like began to look like Law, you know what I mean? And they're like psychic snails. That's how they work, right? Actually, the way I think about this, maybe Oda didn't pull that one out of his ass. Maybe that was intentional to make you think that it was Jarl, or make you think that it was somebody with a long beard, because the term Mosa kind of refers to the snail more than like, oh, it is a shaggy, woolly snail that Loki is communicating with Mosa through, right? Okay. So it is a question there of like, it's a cold-resistant Den Mushi. We've never seen those before. It would make sense if there was one, it would have to be covered in thick fur in order to survive in the cold. Okay, well, it's covered in thick fur. But the person he's talking to is also Mosa, which also means thick fur. That might be a trick. It might be. We might be bamboozled here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. So, okay. if it is Jarl, split personalities or something like that, like something, okay? Because like the way that this person is communicating with Loki does not seem to be the way Jarl normally communicates with everybody else, all right? Now, granted, Jarl does have a giant sword lodged in his cerebellum, right? Like shoved right through his brain, right? So, like, if there's anything that might cause you to have some different personality types or something that might make you, like, is like, I am Jarl, the great warrior of the giants, and then be like, you know, it's like, hi, Loki, how are you doing today? You know, like, if there's anything like that that would cause that, great sword through the skull probably would do it, right? Okay, so I guess not impossible. You know, just something more for me, like headcanon, I always imagined it was somebody that wasn't on Elbaf. The way that they were talking to Loki. Also, Loki did say, we've never met in person before. Okay, I'm pretty sure Loki has met Jarl in person before, but, you know, if it's a different personality or like maybe not even necessarily like multiple personalities, but like a facade, you know, like Mosa's just putting on an act or something like that, you know, or you know, Jarl's like warrior personality is not the real one, and like that's his real personality the entire time. I don't know. But I just don't see enough to go off of just based off of the snail. The snail might be a misdirect, or it might just be something like, oh yeah, there's woolly snails that really only exist in Elbaf because we've never seen them before. Okay, so yeah, the beard and everything, I attribute that to the snail. I could be wrong on that, but I'm gonna go on that one. Okay, so because in the last chapter, Jarl, you know, all the giants were like, warrior Jarl, you gotta run, you gotta get out of here. Like, whoa, okay, so Jarl's getting ready to, you know, gear up for battle. He's ready to go out and, you know, I don't know, pull the sword out of his head and fight, or turn evil in the process. I'm not really sure, right? So because of the conversation that Mosa was having with Loki, hey, stuff has really happened, I don't think we're gonna be able to talk anymore, some horrible danger occurred, so yeah, I you know, I won't be able to talk anymore. That could be Jarl about ready to go off to battle. I could see that. I just don't feel Jarl. I'm just not feeling it in terms of that being the reveal, okay? Could be wrong, but that's that. Another character in Elbaf, I think that makes a lot more sense. I personally don't think it's somebody on Elbaf. I think it's somebody outside of Elbaf, you know, because I don't know, the way that that person was communicating with Loki, and Loki was talking about like, oh, we've never met in person, and oh, that place, is that place still in danger, or did that happen again, you know? Seems to be referring to another location somewhere in the world. I'm not even really sure. Like, if Loki and Mosa have never met in person, how did they even become pen pals? Like, how did that even, like, go down? I don't know. Did, like, the servants of Loki, like, the humans wearing the cloaks, you know, present him with a Den Mushi one day, and then he just started, like, I don't know. How does the Den Mushi work? Can you just, like, send out a call, just like, hello, is anybody out there that wants to talk? My name's Loki. I'm 63 years old. I have pink hair. I'm single. I'm chained to a tree. You know, like how does that work? Like, you just, like, is like a one-piece version of, like, Bumble or something. You just send out a message of, hi, I'm Mosa. I live in Marijois. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, how does that work? You know, a Den Mushi, you know, friend meeting app or something like that. I don't know. But at some point, they, without meeting in person, or at least Loki's perspective, they never met in person, they begin a conversation, okay? And they begin to become friends. I was like, okay. So another option, though, Biblo, the owl. Okay, yeah, I can see that one. That one makes more sense to me, because that owl has been very mysterious, hasn't done much of anything up until now, just kind of hangs out in a library. I'm assuming it's capable of speech. It's like the wise ancient owl that has always lived on Elbaf. I'm assuming it's capable of talking. Saul didn't really mention Biblo that much. Saul was just like, yeah, that's Biblo, the ancient owl. He's been here for as long as anyone could remember, and he's got a devil fruit ability to make books grow. Anyway, he just hangs out on top of a branch and naps for most of the day. That's pretty much it. How you doing, Biblo? Ooh. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much like I don't bother the owl. The owl is tired and sleepy. Okay, right? Okay. So now that the owl library is burning down, it would make sense that Biblo would like communicate with Loki. Like Loki, the library's burning down. I might not be able to call you anymore. This might be it for old Biblo. And Loki's like, wait a minute, no. Now Loki does say, wait a minute, are you in danger again? Did something happen? Now Biblo is very ancient. So it might not even be referring to the moment of like Harald's assassination way back in like 20 years ago, right? Biblo could be referring to something that occurred years, hundreds of years ago. Biblo could be referring to the Void Century, for God's sake, right? Like if Biblo really is that ancient and Saul said, oh, he's been here forever, like even before there was like long before there was a school, even before there was a library, like Biblo was always here. Like we just don't know. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they built the library around Biblo, right? Like Biblo was hanging out on a branch and then like he's like let's build a library and call it the Owl Library and Biblo can make books bigger. So that's the library probably came after, you know what I mean? That's what I'm assuming. So if Biblo really is that ancient and can speak human speech, we would not know their personality type or the way they talk because that's never been shown directly. So this could in fact be them. I would go with that more, but I don't know. I cannot help but think there's something else like in another location going on here. And that one is, and I've mentioned it before, Marijois. All right. Marijois is in flames right now. We've learned that directly from Emu. There was ideas that Mosa could have been a noble. I'm going more with the idea that Mosa could have in fact, or could be right now, a slave living in Marijois, right? And that would explain a lot of like the traumatizing events and everything like that. The events that led Mosa to be captured as a slave to the world government and is living there now. Managed to sneak away and stash a Den Mushi somewhere and is able to communicate with Loki once in a while through the Pen Pal program, through the Den Mushis or whatever. I don't really know how that would go down. And now the entire place is burning. And this would make sense. Like Mosa's explaining like all these horrible things that happened to me and I still tremble in fear. And Loki is like, well, if I was there, I would have wiped out all of my enemies. Like, that's the way I would have done it. And Mosa's like, you know, maybe their personality is so much like, well, I don't want people to die, you know, kind of thing. Like, even the people that did horrible things to me, regardless of whether or not Mosa is a slave or not, there was a moment where horrible things happened to them, and they don't want those people to necessarily die because of those horrible events. Even though it was traumatizing, Mosa is still like, it's going a little bit too far, right? So that's kind of showing you the personality difference there. So, also the idea that it could be just a celestial dragon. It could be an actual celestial dragon that might be like one of the good ones, you know, like similar to Homing or Mulesguard after he was, you know, like brought over to the other side after he was Domi reversied by Otohime, maybe, right? It could be a member of the celestial dragons that's like, you know, like, oh, they're attacking the city, they're burning it down again, the traumatizing event from before, maybe could have been attacking, but Fisher Tiger climbed the red line at one point and burned the whole city, you know, maybe could be referring to that moment or something like that, right? Like, oh yeah, there's this guy, Fisher Tiger, he climbed the red line and he set the town on fire and that killed my parents, or something, right? I think it might be possible that Oda is trying to go from that direction of like, we've definitely seen celestial dragons that aren't all objectively evil, right? So what if it's like, oh yeah, the revolutionaries attacked Marijois or Fisher Tiger burned the town down and that killed my parents. And that was a traumatizing event. And now something else is happening where the city is on fire again because Dragon's Revolution is happening right now, right? Or Blackbeard's attacking or whatever. And so this is why they're calling Loki now. So I really think Mosa ultimately is going to be a plot device, whoever it turns out to be. Well, it couldn't just be anybody. It couldn't be Jarl or Biblo. If it was somebody that's not on Elbaf, let's say that. If Mosa's somebody not on Elbaf, this is going to be the plot hook for Loki to go after Elbaf has concluded, right? Like, people are saying already, Loki should join the Straw Hats, Loki should join with the Straw Hats. Loki has definitely a big part to play in the final war. I don't see Loki traveling with the Straw Hats right after this, okay? I see the Straw Hats leaving Elbaf, going to their next destination, whatever the circumstances will be at that point, given what's all the crazy shit that's happening right now. But I think Loki is going to be like, I have to go find my friend. I have to go find my friend Mosa, and I have to make sure they're okay. And maybe it's at this point, because I'm sure Loki knows. Loki knows where Mosa is, the circumstances. It's just like like Oda's hiding that particular information from the readers for right now. After this is all said and done and they're going their separate ways, I think Luffy's just like, you want to come with us, Loki? And Loki's like, nah, I'm not going to travel with you ants. You know, I have to go make sure my friend's okay. They live in Marijois. I'm going to go check. You know, and it's like, oh, be careful. It's like, don't worry, I'll be fine. You know, it might be something like that. Loki goes to save Mosa, and then it loops back together at the end of the story at this big final war at Laugh Tale when Loki shows up there, right? Like, it plays a role to play at that, right? Or it could be a plot hook to get the Straw Hats to go to Marijois, which Straw Hats, like, are they going to go to Marijois at some point? I don't know. Teleportation's a thing now. It's possible. Luffy has crazy sun god powers. I don't know. There's another idea. I've seen a few people saying it could be Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi having like long hair, you know, she's a giant as well, so maybe that could be the reference. And her personality does seem to match Mosa's personality quite a bit in terms of the like, yeah, horrible things happened. I don't want to murder anybody though, you know, like that could be Shirahoshi's personality definitely. It would also mean something really bad is happening at Fishman Island right now, though, and we haven't gotten any information from there in a while. Something bad could be happening there right now. I don't know. Maybe the entire Red Line is shaking at the moment, so Marijois is on fire, and the cave that Fishman Island is beginning to crumble or something. It could be something like that, right? I'm not really sure. Just wanted to bring it up at the end, because the personality in terms of the way the conversation's flowing does kind of match Shirahoshi, honestly. But yeah, let me know down below who you think Mosa is. Mosa. Chewbacca, Jarl, Biblo, random person from Marijois we've never met, Shirahoshi, Gaimon. I saw somebody say it could be Gaimon. You know, Gaimon had shaggy hair. It's possible. All right, I can bring Gaimon back in the story. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Techie 101 signing out. Later.